Okay, great. Hello, hi. What a technical setup to connect actually with people here in the space, but as well as people far away who are watching us through the stream. So we are gathering in the next lab, in the next museum. It's a museum for new media art that just recently opened in Amsterdam. And it's 1,400 square meters of huge exhibition space in an old film studio in Amsterdam North, where we are actually facilitating and first of all welcoming large installations and art that engages with technology, art, science. So mostly the works that are maybe not that easy to accommodate or host in some other traditional museums. So we are also here to kind of extend or expand the exhibition Shifting Proximities that started, that was our first exhibition that is at the moment installed here. And we're really looking, as title says, like we are being shifted internationally through the COVID-19, but also how does technology help us in these situations, or other way around, how does technology takes us over? So as a next lab, we are space for research and development, a space that is part of the next museum. We're on the top floor, we're smaller. And we are trying to bring technology to people, to reclaim technology, to also reclaim who has the right to tell the story with the use of technology. And on the other side, how can we reclaim the body from the technology as well? So we have very little time. We have only 30 minutes today. I would actually like to focus more on the topic today. Topic of AI and artist and law, and the question who is using who, or at what point is collaborative process between AI and artists, and at what point is actually AI autonomous, and if that happens, how does that script look like? So we have special guests from Belgium and Italy who are joining us. Or maybe it's also important to say that at this moment we have a Zoom audience that is in the space here on this screen, and we also do have a live audience that is here, and we are being streamed live through our Electronica channels. So for audience that has questions, I'm able to see them in a chat, so please attack as soon as you feel like. After this, we will have a stream of the performance from LOREM. So LOREM is also part of the discussion. Yeah, and in case you have some questions, yeah, just use the chat. So two speakers, two guests today. So we have Sari Depreeuw from Belgium, who is a digital lawyer, suitable for Ars Electronica and suitable for next museum. We'll definitely work at some point with Sari as a new institution focused on new media art. And she's also a teacher. She teaches intellectual property and media law. Sari is based in Belgium, in Brussels. And our second guest is Francesco, known as LOREM, multimedia, new media artist, publisher, researcher focusing on representation, politics of representation, and quite rebellious in the back of his, in his approach actually, how he creates the art and how he deals with copies. So I would like first to ask you both if you would like to introduce yourself a little bit briefly and then start with your presentations. Yeah. So Sari, the webcam is yours. Yeah.
So yeah, I think everything has already been said about me. I am a lawyer and I am a professor at university. I've been searching copyright in a digital environment for a long time. Is it to me?
Yeah, great. Yeah. No, it's all fine. I just ask for a louder sound here in the space so that the audience can hear you. Yeah.
So yeah, I've been researching copyright in a digital environment for over, let's say 15 years now. And well, it's a very, very fast moving field. So there's still a lot to do.
Okay, thank you, Francesco, or LOREM. We will call you LOREM in the next 1 hour. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Yeah, Bogomir said mostly everything. I work with music, which is the main area which I come from, and I work with new media, especially neural networks and AI to produce text, visuals, and music. And as you mentioned before, I work also as a publisher and independent researcher in the field of politics of representation.
Okay, cool, great. So let's let him start with your presentation. And I think we had quite some meetings last few days, and I'm actually very happy that you will kind of give us an insight in what it means to work with artificial intelligence and how you work and how these images are being produced, because there is a bombardment of this imagery online, but we don't really know what is the process. So I'm actually very happy that you will share this with us. And could we have a sound just a little bit louder, because I'm not able to hear them. Okay, LOREM, yeah.
Hello, everybody. First of all, of course, I would like to thank everybody at Next and ours for having me here tonight. In this occasion, I would like to briefly speak about some questions concerning AI aesthetics in relation to authorship, appropriation, and creativity. Those issues have been stressed by artists, musicians, and practitioners since a long time now. I'm gonna share my screen. Can you?
Yes, we can see it, yeah.
Okay. So I was saying, those issues have been stressed by artists, musicians, and practitioners since a long time now. Entire generations of artists challenge the idea of originality, creativity, and their role as creators of new contents through a wide range of techniques, such as the tournament, appropriation, plagiarism, vandalism, multiple naming, sampling, memetic, recently, etc. These problematic issues emerge with new specific problems in contemporary AI-related context. First of all, neural networks are more and more employed to automatically classify and identify copyright infringement, for instance, and even to declare autonomously the authorship of artworks. On the other hand, the same networks are the really same networks opportunely modified are employed to cheat copyright protection system through adversarial attacks. But more in general, my interest tonight is about the fact that AI systems, especially in art context, question the concept of authorship at many levels. Neural networks are tools applied in arts require, of course, big data sets to train their models. Those data sets typically consist in media data, images, sound, MIDI files, text, even code sometimes, etc. It is also in the nature of neural networks that the resulting artworks are essentially radical remixes of the work that is used to train them. At the same time, there has been never before a society that was able to access media from contemporary contexts and from the immediate past so easily and so copiously. And it sounds pretty normal then that we can notice an emergent triangulation between AI appropriation and remixing questions in the work of many AI artists. I would like tonight to present 3 examples from my work including some excerpts from the live set I will play later to highlight different ways I try to deal with artworks from other authors, especially, and other artists. In the first example, I worked with text. The example comes from the Adversarial Feelings book I published last year via Crisis Publishing. In Adversarial Feelings, I built a text dataset which was made by copyright-protected text from different authors, describing different states of consciousness, let's say. And the aim was to build a kind of emotional dataset, and then classified those text sample according with Planchik wheels of emotion, which is a model introduced by Robert Planchik in 1980. And it results in a representation of the whole spectrum of human emotions. He suggested basically eight primary bipolar emotions alongside these 4 axes. Those emotions can be expressed at different intensities along the axis and they can be mixed with another to form secondary emotion as well. So every sample from the dataset was classified to express 1 or more emotions. I then started generating text, new text, completely new, let's say, even if they were generated from the dataset. By selecting specific points, couple of points from the diagram, completely disregarding polarity. The resulting generated text should then interpret adversarial emotion by learning patterns, grammar, and aesthetics from the original datasets. A second example is something more easy to understand, maybe because it's based on image dataset, and is taken from within a Latin space performance from tonight. The 2 datasets that was the basis for the training of two different networks was the first was made by thousands of images depicting woods, forests, trees. And the second one is the very popular Celebi dataset, which is open source dataset made by thousands of images of celebrities and is much used by many artists. Through a simple domain change, a technique that allows to start training a network from a previous training, I made a kind of interpolation between the weights of the 2 networks, and the effect is a kind of pareidolia, let's say, where you can recognize faces made by branches, leaves, and trees. In this case, I was interested in suggesting the idea that what we perceive as natural is the result of a cultural process, of course, and it's in the end a human construction as well. And then the third example that will be present in my upcoming performance is specifically designed for the presentation, and is a little reflection and provocation about appropriation and AI. I chose as a data set a very famous recent, of course, authorial artwork, Utopia video by York. And I did 2 different AI interventions on the dataset. In the first case, I employed this large-scale adversarial representation learning by Donovan and Semonen. And this network is designed to generate images which are as similar as possible to the native image, but sufficiently different to avoid any copyright infringements or any plagiarism issues. The resulting outputs depict a video where basically the work of Daniel Landy, director of photography of the video, was kind of stolen. In fact, you can easily identify the same post-production ratio in the two videos. The second example is even simpler, and it's and I trained here a style GAN2 generative neural network to learn how to reproduce the image from the Bjork video, mostly exactly. But I then stopped the training before the network was able to reconstruct some too much realistic images. The idea here was then that the more a machine fails, let's say, in copying other authors' images, the more authorial it is. And in other words, authoriality comes from our errors in interpreting the word, let's say. But apart from my example, even when training models using their own materials and avoiding appropriation, in my opinion, most of the processes of using neural networks to create art is ultimately still one of remixing. Of course, there are cases where neural networks are creating entirely new works, also by employing more abstract kind of data, and I employ them so much, especially with music and sound. But there's no question that the archiving practices that artists use to train the models have a huge impact on the final result. Jason Bailey refers at those artworks as radical remixes. Radical in the sense that output is often completely different from the original input, let's say. And the AI artist, in this sense, act and behave as an archivist and as a remixer, and AI allows the archivist himself to be an author, producing literally new content. This is mostly the conclusion of my little speech.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe last note is that during the live set you will find some other small, let's say, Easter eggs or references to other works you can still barely recognize when you compare with original sources.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thank you, Lorem. Yeah, I'm just checking the time, and since we are live, we'll be cut exactly at 8 p.m. So I would love to now ask Sari to start her presentation. And I think she will elaborate a little bit more on this relationship of artist and stealing, appropriating, and how does that impact the law and other way around. So Sari, yes, please share your screen. Yeah. Thank you, Lorem.
Very often lawyers express legal positions in relation to technologies which they do not really understand. So in relation to copyright and artificial intelligence, a lot is to be said. Many copyright lawyers are very enthusiastic about these conceptual challenges, really. And the first question that one would address would be, well, the outcome of this process. We've seen that there is a certain autonomy of this artificial intelligence solution in the output, in the actual creation. And so the first question would be, well, this output, is this protected under copyright, yes or no? And as Lorem correctly pointed out, the author is very central. Traditionally in copyright, the author is very central. The human author is very central. So if this author is being assisted or being replaced by an artificial intelligence system, is there still copyright protection? Second question, if we decide that yes, there's copyright protection, then who should be the author? Is it the artist who takes the initiative? Is it the one who goes to select the data sets, the one who designs the algorithm, the one who makes the selection in the end? Or should we consider that this artificial intelligence is sufficiently autonomous to be the author and perhaps even to have legal personality to exercise the rights to the outcome? Difficult questions. Third question I can think of is, as a public, are we entitled to certain things? When I see a picture, a painting, and I'm struck by the passion of the painting and my projection of the passion of the author, but it turns out afterwards that actually this wonderful picture is not made by a human, a tormented artist, but by an AI system, I might feel deceived. I might feel cheated. So am I entitled to know whether artificial intelligence has been used or not? Very interesting question as well. All very interesting questions, but that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the use of copyright-protected works in the process of artificial intelligence. And perhaps it's useful to take one step back and to look at the analog times. Analog times, very simple. I have a book, I read a book, I think about the ideas, I make up my own mind, I have some insights, I write them down. This entire process entails no copyright protected acts. Reading, thinking, processing, writing, as long as I don't copy anyone's text, I have not made any copyright infringement. So in copyright terms, I'm going to look for this work, a literary or artistic work. What is protected under copyright is the original expression of a thought, the idea, the information, a concept, a theory, a style, a method. These things are too abstract to be protected under copyright. Secondly, I need to demonstrate, as an author, I need to demonstrate that my work, my original expression, has been reproduced, distributed, or communicated to the public. If none of these acts, which are protected under copyright law, has been demonstrated, then I have no control. I can't prohibit anything. So that means that the reading, the viewing, the listening to works that do not entail any copies are free. An author cannot prohibit these types of acts. The reuse of ideas, again, not protected under copyright. If I can demonstrate that there's a reproduction of a work, an original expression of an idea, then the author, in addition to these economic rights, has some moral rights, right of attribution, right of integrity. Now let's take a look at this graphic representation of an AI process that corresponds more or less to what LOREM has used as well. Huh? We can see an algorithm that needs to be trained by a data set. This data set can contain raw data, but it can also contain some copyright protected works. That might be images, there might be text, might be music. We've seen everything in LOREM's presentation. And in the process of training these algorithms, copies will be made. Even though they're technical copies, they're temporary copies, ephemeral copies, nevertheless, they are copies. If I want to apply this trained algorithm to new data, again, there might be copyright protected works. There will be copies of these protected works. And again, an act that these different authors of all these input data can prohibit. Final question, is the output protected? Very interesting, but not our concern at this point. So if we look in copyright terms again, we need to qualify this technical process of using these input data in order to generate output. The input data may contain copyright protected works, and if in the process of training the model and applying the trained model to new input data, at some point, some copy, a reproduction of this work is made, we do fall within the scope of the exclusive rights of the author, and the author, well, he can or she can impose their authorization in order to proceed with this process. So that becomes a very big dependency. This goes, even though in the output, the works that have been used in the preparation of this process, those works can no longer be recognized. So as we saw in LOREM's example as well, you can recognize some hints of style of the works that have been used, but not the expression itself. Nevertheless, if during the process a copy of protected works are used, as a matter of principle, the author's consent needs to be obtained, and these authors can actually refuse their consent as well. So this means that we have a bit of an issue, because certain things that in an analog world are free, well, reading, viewing, processing, thinking, creating, not protected under copyright. In a digital world, all of these similar acts become protected under copyright. So the author gathers more control over certain processes of new users than is the case in an analog world. And so the legislator is sensitive to this argument, because it has a big impact on the creation of new information, the freedom of ideas, and creativity. So they came up with certain specific exceptions. There's a specific exception for mere technical copies. There's exceptions for teaching or research. And there's a new exception with the revision of copyright a year ago for text and data mining. And so here, again, the idea is, okay, there's this new technology of text and data mining, big data, AI, all these new technologies rely on these processes of text and data mining. We see the advantage of these technologies because it allows us to process these huge quantities of data, to gather new knowledge, new insights, and to use these insights in innovation in the process, but also the use of the outcome of these analysis for other innovative processes. So the European legislator is motivated to provide an exception, so no control for the author, for these processes of text and data mining. They start with the definition of text and data mining. What does it mean? It means any automated analytical technique aimed at analyzing text and data in digital form in order to generate information that can include, but is not limited to, patterns, trends, and correlations. So a fairly large definition of text and data mining. And then we have an exception in two parts. One exception for text and data mining in the context of scientific research, and then an exception for all other purposes. And so the result of this exception is that anyone can use copyright protected work in the context of text and data mining, regardless of the quality of this person. So it might be a small company, it might be a startup, it might be a huge company. For example, search engines, online search engines will typically rely a lot on this type of technologies. It could be students, it could be artists, anyone can use this exception for text and data mining. No other conditions, not in regard of the purpose, so it might be commercial purposes, non-commercial purposes, artistic purposes, anything goes, but there's one condition that needs to be taken into account. It is whether the author has not opted out. So an author, as a matter of principle, loses control over their work in the context of text and data mining, but they have a possibility to regain control if they opt out and they communicate to the user, I do not want my work to be used for text and data mining purposes. So the result is, supposedly, that new opportunities will arise. We can have, the finishing of Schubert's symphony. There might be journalistic articles that can be written, new music that can be composed, etc. So all these types of new creations, as well as the one that we're about to witness as well from LOREM's hand. However, some risk might be identified as well, because the idea was to create this functional equivalence between the reading and understanding in a digital context and in an analog context. But we can ask the question, is this really the case if we are facing these powerful technologies that really easily surpass human capacities? The use of these technologies could also lead to, well, the creation of substitutes. And even if, well, artists will never be entirely replaced. Art will always exist. There might be an impact on revenues and, more importantly, perhaps, the distribution of